Hey there, it's Jen from EmpathicMastery.com, and to get a copy of the book, EmpathicMasteryBook.com. And I wanted to jump on today for a few reasons. One was because I was doing some work earlier with one of my mentors, and amazingly, I was doing some work with sitting with the discomfort of this time because it is an uncomfortable time. There's just so much going on. At least that is true for me. And there's so much going on. So one of the things that I wanted to mention was that a challenge for a lot of us who are highly sensitive and empathic is that the lens that we experience distress through, even if it's not our actual problem or feeling or thing going on, often will show up as if it's our own experience. So, for example, the other day, a friend of mine left a message for me saying, a text message saying, "Oh my God, I was feeling really stressed out. I was really worried about my kid. And suddenly, like in the middle of the night, I had this intrusive thought, and I was thinking, like my kid is dead, and I mean, it's like I'll admit, I've had that experience about pets. I've had that experience about parents. I've had that experience about my spouse, and it's just like that moment of just like you're clutched with fear and you're suddenly thinking, holy shit, something bad I'm just sure of it. And what I had commented to her about was that right now, the truth is that there are people dying. There are people dying. I mean, the truth is people die constantly. But the truth is that right now there are people dying unexpectedly and suddenly, and we've got sort of a global perception and experience of like the fear of the coronavirus. And so, as highly sensitive empathic people, a lot of times the filter or the lens that we experience other people's thoughts, feelings, and energy is as if it's our own process, as if it's our own memory, as if it's our own experience. And that is one of the things. And actually, it was funny because I was just listening to Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, which I'm just loving. Highly recommend it. It's really comforting for these times. It's a really wonderful book. And she was actually talking about how she's so empathic and so sensitive that she will often experience emotions as if they're her own. And she was watching a reality TV program with, some guy out in the wilds of whatever. And she found herself as he was like coming up to the moment of tension in the reality TV show where suddenly he was lost and had no food. And suddenly she's like, oh my God, and feeling it. And I think that's the thing about being highly sensitive and empathic is that so frequently we can be experiencing or feeling distress and the way we interpret it, even if it's not our own, is often through our own filter. Now, sometimes this is because something is, hey there, Lenora. Sometimes this is because something is being triggered within us, and it's actually our own stuff that we get to work on. But what I have found is that it's not uncommon for those of us who are highly sensitive and empathic to also be picking up stuff that is not really ours, but interpreting it through our own lens. So if you are noticing that lately you've been having intrusive thoughts, that lately you've been feeling more despair, that you've been feeling more anxious, that you've been feeling more sad, more angry, more all kinds of challenging emotions, what I really want to say is it's very likely that while we all have really good reasons to be feeling this way right now, that on top of the feelings that we are all going through, there's the amplification that comes with being highly sensitive and empathic. So I wanted to throw that piece out there, and then I wanted to tell you this amazing thing about today specifically. So 39 years ago, exactly. I was a total 18-year-old hot mess. And I had gone on a road trip with some friends. And at that point in time, let's just say I had a glorious misspent youth. And so I was not disinclined to partake of all kinds of things. So we were driving from the Boston area out to Western Massachusetts, and we were all buzzed high, coming down off of a night of tripping and being out walking around in the woods and just all kinds of stuff. And basically, I was in the passenger seat, and the person who had been driving decided that he wanted a break, and so he let his friend drive. But what his friend failed to mention was that he didn't have a driver's license, and he hadn't really been driving in about 3 years, and he didn't really know what he was doing. And we'd been smoking hash. We were coming down off of coming down off of an acid trip. And on top of that, we had been drinking really bad homemade wine. And so we were intoxicated, we were out of it, we were disoriented, and this guy didn't know how to drive. So basically, he got in the car, or got in the passenger seat, started to drive, and put his foot on the accelerator. And within 30 seconds of being in the car of like him driving, he had lost control of the car. We were skidding, we were rolling, and basically I was in a very serious car accident. Now, the thing that's really interesting about this event is that my birthday happens to be Christmas Day. And 39 years ago, on Thursday, April 16th, just so happens to also have been a Thursday, it was Holy Thursday. So Holy Thursday in the Christian tradition is the day of the Last Supper, and it's also the day right before Good Friday. So my joke has always been that if it had been one day later, I am absolutely, I wouldn't have made it. Now, this experience was my first wake-up call, because I was kind of heading along on this little trajectory. I was going to be an artist. I was going to do all of these different things. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was like dating various and sundry boys, and just like really trying. I'm 18 years old, and I'm just trying to figure shit out, trying to make sense of how to deal, because I was so sensitive, I was so magical, I was so psychic. And at that point in time, we're talking 39 years ago, like the word empath only existed on Star Trek. I don't even think Space 1999 existed yet. And so there was like no reference points for being the way I was. And the feedback that I was getting constantly was, you're too intense, you're too much, you have too much of you've got a wicked overactive imagination, you're overreacting, you're being too sensitive, you're taking it too personally, you are making things up, there's no reason you should be feeling this way, just suck it up, let it go, get over it. I imagine that a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you do, give me some thumbs up, or give me like faces, or even like tear faces, because it sucks to be so invalidated and to be so ignored and so dismissed, and having people basically say, all of your experience, there's no legitimacy to it. It's like you just need to figure out how to get your stuff together. So at that point in time, I was doing the best I could. I was coping, and I was trying to find the answers. I was trying to figure out how to manage my feelings, and how to manage my anxiety, and how to manage all of the stuff that I was sensing and picking up from the world around me. Because at that point in time, I didn't have tools. Nobody was naming this for what it is. Nobody was saying, oh, well, you're an empath and that's why this is going on. And instead, I was basically being told, suck it up, buttercup, sort this out, figure this out, get your shit together. And the thing was that the ways that I knew to get my shit together was, I believed, one, that if I had a boyfriend who loved me and told me I was beautiful, that everything would be okay. That was one of the number one things. Number two, I believed that if I was thinner, I would be okay. That if somehow I could just get even skinnier than I was. And at that point in time, I was 5 foot tall and I probably weighed about 120 pounds. For that time and space, I wasn't a size 0, but I was a very, very normal sized young woman. I was like super normal. I was not fat at all, but I believed I was. And I also was struggling mightily with food and with sugar addiction, because it was one of the things that brought me relief, but it was also one of the things that I could be like obsess over. Like it was something that I had some kind of control over. So at that point in time, there was like looking for boyfriends to find answers. There was like trying to control my weight to find answers and to try to feel better and believe that if I could just get it together that way, everything would be okay. And then there was like smoking weed and hanging out and partying and just trying to find relief. So I was kind of on that trajectory, and I was riding around in cars with people who were partying and really should not have been driving. And I was living a charmed life. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, God protects drunks, fools, and children, and I was all three. And that was, in my case, I was more of a stoner than a drunk. Thankfully, alcohol has never really been my drug of choice. But I was definitely, I was like a stoner, I was a fool, and I was definitely a child. And I was magically protected. Like, I just think about some of the stuff I would get myself into, and it was just amazing how frequently I just, I dodged bullets and I was kind of kept out of harm's way. But 39 years ago, I got into a car and I was not kept out of harm's way. And I came, and the experience that I had was a life-changing experience, because I came so close to the possibility, like the car accident was a very serious car accident. And when it happened, I remember sitting in the car and flipping, like we're swirling around, we're flipping. And I remember the part of me that was like, oh, I didn't think I was going to die right now, but maybe it's my time. And at that point, I went, well, I guess I'll find out what it's like. And it was such a remarkable experience, because I was so willing. Like, I was just so like, okay, I wasn't thinking it would happen, but if this is the will of the universe, if this is the way it's going to go, then all right, I'll accept it. I'll just, I'll just surrender to this. And then I came through on the other side of it. And I had this experience of life being heightened in a way that I'd never experienced before. Everything was magical. Everything was like, I don't know if you've ever been through something really intense where your adrenaline just basically takes over. But for me, there's this silver glow. There's this like everything sparkles and everything is just heightened and time is different. It's a really different experience of reality. And for me, it was spectacular. It was just absolutely magical. And then all the stuff started to happen. The ambulance showed up, the cops showed up. Amazingly, a priest showed up within 30 seconds of the car crashing. And all of these sort of things started to unfold. And while I was really okay in those first few minutes, I was sort of in shock. I wasn't really in pain. I'm standing in this spring day, feeling the air against my skin and going, holy shit, I'm alive. Then stuff started to unpack, and I started to experience the aftermath of a very traumatic event. And from there, I started to form some conclusions about the world. So on one hand, it gave me this message and this lesson that life is way too short and way too precious to do shit you really don't want to do. So I actually, within about 24 hours of the accident, actually, yeah, I think it was like within 24 hours of the accident, I had called my boss. I was working at a card shop, and my entire job was to replace greeting cards and to dust. It was it was definitely not, it was one of those jobs that, like, a monkey could do. And I didn't love the job. My boss was really neurotic. His mother and he ran the business together, and they were kind of control freaks from hell. So it was not an awesome job to have. And so I realized at that point in time, and I will say I was 18 years old, I was living at home with my parents. I really didn't have, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot at stake, in terms of, I didn't have anybody else I was responsible for. My room and board was minimal. And so basically I could make up for the extremely low paycheck I was making by just babysitting. So I called that person, I called the boss, and I just said, I'm quitting. I was in a car accident and I'm done. And I realized for myself that life was too short to do things that I absolutely hated. Like, that was one of the lessons that I learned from it. And one of my biggest takeaways was that life was too short to do things that I absolutely hate. That, if I'm going to die anyway, I might as well go after my dreams. But at the same time, I also took on a couple other lessons and other things. And that was a couple messages, one of them being, you are out of control. You can't trust yourself, or I'm out of control. I can't trust myself. I am heading down a dangerous path and I need to back up. And as a result of that, what happened was that I had this experience where, on one hand, the universe doesn't make mistakes. God and I have had this really interesting relationship with Christianity, and particularly with Easter and with Jesus, for my entire life. I mean, here I was born to an ex-Catholic mother who went to a Jewish nursing school. I was born in a Jewish hospital on Christmas night, and I was raised as an agnostic slash Unitarian Universalist after a certain point. But I always had the magic in me. I was always very spiritually oriented, even as a very little magical child. And then I have this life-changing car accident on Holy Thursday, the day before Good Friday. And it's sort of like, and then the priest shows up, which today, as I was working with my mentor, all of a sudden, so to circle back, I'm working with my mentor today, and all of a sudden, I'm like super aware of, I'm back there. I'm back in that moment. I'm back at that point in time where everything just kind of went sideways. And I can feel the air on my skin, and I can feel the fear, and I can feel the grace, and I can feel the, oh my goodness, I'm still alive. I got the get out of jail free card. And I'm realizing and I'm there. And then, amazingly, and this is how the universe works, I didn't even know that today was the anniversary of this event until I looked it up, and I went, holy shit, it's exactly 39 years to the minute from when this experience happened that I am tapping on it and working through it. And I realized as I was working on it earlier today and sort of able to go back into it in a way that I've never been able to go back into it before, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, there's a priest who shows up 30 seconds after the accident. Yeah, think God might have a sense of humor with me. So it just sort of felt like, oh, but of course, this is what happened. This is the way it happened. This is how it happened. And for me, the thing about this experience was that it was this combination of initiation and wake up call where I really was invited to essentially, at the age of 18 years old, the universe was basically saying, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself because you are heading down a perilous path and you gotta stop or else we are not going to be able to protect you. And what are you really going to do with your one wild and precious life? And I felt like the magic was being initiated in me. I was being awakened to my possibilities. My family was down in Florida at the time, and my grandmother, I could lie to her and say I was completely fine. So she was none the wiser. I called her up. I was like, "Hey, Granny, I was in a car accident, but I'm fine." She's like, "Okay," and she just like left me alone. And because my parents were in Florida on vacation and my grandmother was supposedly in charge of keeping an eye on me, there was sort of like my parents had no idea until days later when they came home and they're like realized that I had gotten my back had gotten injured and I was all cut up and I was just beaten up from this experience. So I had to pull it together for myself. Like I really had to basically find my way through it. And on one hand, that experience was really hard because one of the conclusions that I started to form was I'm on my own when I'm in trouble. But the other side of it was that I actually was able to get myself through a challenging situation and found my way. And so it really was this initiation, this ordeal of my own to get where I needed to go. And what I realized is that experience for many, many, many years has essentially served as both a like the foot going down on the accelerator or the rocket just about to take off, and the momentum and the power of that rocket getting ready to take off with, at the exact same time, somebody pulling the emergency brake and aborting the mission. So it's been a very interesting experience because it really did affect my sense of safety about the world. It affected my ability to take risks and to be bold. It affected my sense of just getting triggered because this was my first taste of real PTSD. There had been things that had been difficult in my childhood. There had been things that had caused me to be a very high strung, very anxious, very nervous child. But this event was the first time where my life was in peril. I was actually in such harm's way that I had nightmares for years afterwards. And I really kept on trying to make sense of it. And when I learned about soul loss a number of years later, in terms of shamanism and the idea of soul retrieval, as soon as I read about soul loss, I knew that I had left a big chunk of myself there. And over the years, for the last 30 years of my life, because I would say, or even more accurately, 35 years of my life, I have been working on this event and I've been going back and retrieving pieces of myself and bringing back the energy because it was so intense. And what it ended up doing was it served as a catalyst for me to learn how to handle really intense stuff, and it served as a catalyst for me to understand the impact of trauma and also the importance of addressing and healing it, and the importance of being able to go back and retrieve ourselves. And so I can see that 39 years later, if this event had not happened, I would absolutely not be the person I am today. Um, I probably would not have had to find solutions for myself. I probably wouldn't have had to find tools that I could use to heal. I probably wouldn't have been so hungry for the spiritual quest and for relief from that experience. So it's been really amazing to kind of come full circle. We're talking 313s. 39, is like 3 times 13. It's such a magical number. It's just spectacular that here I am, 39 years later. Coronavirus is like blowing up our planet. All kinds of wild, wild, wild stuff is happening. And I am at this place where I'm like, oh, I get it. I see it. And I have incredible gratitude for the lessons that it taught me, and also appreciation for the limitations that I took on as a result of it. Because I could really see that this experience, this event, was the event that taught me that reinforced, that solidified, that cemented the conclusion that I had that the world was not safe. And that if I am my full-blown, wild, precious, untamed self, that somehow that is too dangerous, and that I need to tone it down, I need to back it up, and that basically I really just stuff it down. And so I can see how every single baby step that I have taken that has led me to this point all has been so necessary and so incredibly important. And that in many ways, timing is perfect. Timing is exactly what it needs to be. I know for myself that there's this incredible dance between struggle and surrender, and this incredible tension between the part of me that wants it all now, the part of me that wants the answers now, the part of me that wants to have it all sorted out and figured out and understandable now, and then the part of me that at a certain point can look back and go, that is divine and perfect. Oh my God, I couldn't have possibly orchestrated this any more perfectly if I had tried. And so what I've noticed for myself is that I can be either in a state of agitation and distress about the situation that I'm in, or I can be in a place of willingness to accept the discomfort and willingness to let what is be. And I was thinking about, I had done a meme a good while ago that basically said, why, it was something, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially something like, instead of drowning, float. Because the thing about drowning, the thing about perishing that way, is that so much of it has to do with our resistance. It has to do with our struggle. It has to do with the part of us that starts grinding and getting squirrely and freaking out. And when I was a kid and I did swimming lessons and I actually learned how to do some rescuing and lifeguarding stuff, one of the things that they always talked about was how incredibly important it is to not let the drowning person climb on you, because a drowning person is panicking. A drowning person is freaking out. And what you have to do is kind of take your arm and hold them kind of at an arm's length as you're kind of dragging them back to shore. And you're swimming forward, but you're not letting them come close enough to you that their panic can take both of you down. Because the thing with a drowning person is that a drowning person is going to climb on top of whatever it can find or they can find to try to keep their head above water. The irony of all of this is that that struggle is what causes us to drown. And when we can relax and float, we can find our equilibrium again. We can get air again. We can get our balance again. And we can find our way. And right now, we are in this time where there are so many people who are feeling the distress of what is going on, and they feel like they're drowning. And the challenge for those of us who are highly sensitive and empathic is that if we try to rescue people and we are not mindful of our own feelings, our own energy, and we start getting pulled into that undercurrent, that undertow, it's really, really easy to lose our way. So that's one sort of metaphor of that idea of instead of struggle, float. Like really just surrender and float. But the other part of it is that I'm still going to use the water metaphor. The other part of it is the experience of being in a situation. If you've ever been a surfer, and I will admit I'm not a surfer, but I'm familiar with the concepts. But I also have swum I am a swimmer. I spent a lot of time swimming as a child, and I spent a fair amount of time swimming in the ocean. And there's this kind of paradox again. Or another one is when you're driving in and you're skidding. That the message with both driving in with a skid and also with if you're going to just like suddenly eat the wave is that when the wave is coming and you know it's too big and you're not going to be able to navigate it, take a deep breath, go down, and let the wave pass. And that, bobbing down and just sort of diving sort of through it, as opposed to letting it just kind of take you forward and roll you through the sand, is the key to navigating the current and moving through. And with a car, when we're in a situation where suddenly it's like we got caught in a skid, the paradox of this is instead of steering away from it and trying to drive out of it that way, which only causes you to skid more and lose even more control, the irony of it is that we need to lean in to the skid to drive through it and to drive past it and to drive out of it. So for me today, I'm sitting with all the discomfort. I'm sitting with the awareness of what's going on the planet. I'm sitting with the part of me that is so painfully aware of the incredible financial inequities that we have on this planet, of the fact that there are those of us who have refrigerators filled with food and who have a safe place to sleep and a safe place and like gas in the tank and connection and internet and electricity and all the things. And I mean, I saw this post that a person I know had posted yesterday where they had talked about how there was apparently a video interview with a politician, I won't mention names, but interestingly, a liberal politician, standing in front of their refrigerator, two stainless steel fancy schmancy refrigerators, like the kind of refrigerators that are like $11,000 a piece refrigerators. And they were sort of talking about, how they're moving through the quarantine with their stash of artisanal ice cream. And this friend of mine commented about this and said, how incredibly insensitive and like disconnected from reality is this person if they are like talking about like, of the hardship of going through the quarantine with their artisanal ice cream and their two refrigerators. And I really took that in because right now we are in this time of such radical polarization. And it is so hard to see it happening and be highly sensitive and empathic. And yet, there are the things I have the capacity to do something about. And then there are the things that I do not have the capacity to do anything about. And as an empath, sometimes I think we feel a deep sense of urgency. We feel a deep sense of like, it's my job to fix this. And between you and me, sadly, I have my jobs. I have the things that I need to do. You have your jobs. You have the things that you need to do. But it's not to rescue the entire planet. And the thing is that we are in the middle of a total breakdown of the system, a total restructuring of the system, a total possibility. And in a lot of ways, the only way out is through. But also, the only way, it's almost like if you've ever knit anything and you know that you discovered that the pattern, you made a mistake, but you made the mistake way back there. And the only solution is that you got to rip out all your stitches and start over again. And that's the sense I get, is that it's like we are in a period of time right now where we're ripping out the stitches. And that is scary. And that can be hard. And the thing about it is that resistance to these feelings, avoidance of these feelings, trying to protect ourselves from this discomfort, this is what got us in this place in the first place. And so I guess I want to invite you in joining me in having the willingness to be with the magnitude of what is right now. And in having the willingness to feel what you're feeling. And also to be able to hold that space or to identify the space and the separation between what are you feeling, what's really about you, versus what are you picking up from all of the thoughts, feelings, energy, etc. from the world around you. So if, those of you guys who are here and watching this right now, if you could give me some like hearts or thumbs up and let me know if what I'm saying is making sense to you, or if I'm totally not making sense, like this idea of surrender, like leaning in to the intent, leaning into the feeling, allowing it to be what it is, and just holding the space for that. So what I will say about my journey and my experience with acceptance and surrender is that every single time in my life I have resisted what's been going on, it's only been worse. And I've made myself absolutely miserable. And every single time I've had the willingness to accept the discomfort, and I've had the willingness to allow the feelings that are moving through me to simply be feelings. Miracles have happened. I have found this to be true with health things, with physical sensations, with emotional distress, with circumstances, that acceptance has been the key repeatedly, over and over and over again, to finding my way through something. And resistance and like trying to push it away has always generated the opposite. Now, part of this is the whole concept of law of attraction. You know, there's the line, what we resist persists. But another way of looking at it, and this is more LOA, is wherever you put your attention, whatever you focus your mind on, that is what you will amplify. So if we are in a state where we are focusing on, I hate this, this is awful, this sucks, I have no toilet paper, and I don't like being scared, I don't like being uncomfortable, I don't like being locked up in my house, any of these things, that if we focus on that, that's what we amplify. Whereas when we can be like, it is what it is, yep, it's uncomfortable, and this too shall pass, it allows the possibility for us to drive through the skid. It allows for the possibility that we can get out of this like donut that we are spinning in right now, or this undertow that is sucking so many people into the distress. So I could go on and on and on, because there is so much that I am personally learning right now as I'm watching this astonishing period of time, and as I'm witnessing my own struggles and my own journey and my own experience with what's happening, as well as having conversations with people who are in various states of distress. One of the things that I've been noticing is that now more than ever, so many of us are sensitive to each other. So if like we have a conversation with somebody else and they're feeling scared and they say, I'm really worried about XYZ, it's almost like an infection. And I will just say, before I jump off, yes, it is, I'm like, for some reason, there's all these comments. I had no idea that you guys were commenting. Barbara, thank you for commenting. Yes. And letting go and making space is difficult, but necessary. And we do not live in a culture that has ever taught us how to do this. That's the thing. It's like we're only now really starting to learn how to be like, oh, it's okay. And we're only now really starting to learn how to parent our children and to be able to like make it be all right that they're feeling the feelings they're feeling. So I really believe that we are in this amazing process where we're learning how to shift, and simultaneously we're sort of like we're figuring it out as we go along. So what was I going to say about, so what I wanted to say before I jump is that the other night I was watching Chris Cuomo on CNN, and I'm not somebody who spends a ton of time watching the news, but lately I've been wanting to just kind of put my finger on the pulse for 15 minutes a day, just to get a feeling for what other people are perceiving, how what's being said, what's being said in the world. Anyway, so Chris Cuomo has had the coronavirus, and he's been quarantined in his basement, and he's been recording, and he's been like going live from his basement. And the other day he looked dead in the camera, and he talked about how what he realized is that this disease, this virus, this pandemic is not just physical. This guy, I don't know how magical Chris Cuomo is, but I'm kind of imagining he's fairly a muggle. This muggle is getting on national television and saying this virus is emotional and mental as much as it is physical. And what he said is that it causes brain fog, it causes agitation, it causes intense anxiety, it causes depression, like deep, deep level depression. And I realized, I just, as I listened to him, it just gave me chills, because what I realized is that when I had my concussion, where the universe knocked me upside my head right when coronavirus hit, I was experiencing all of these things. I was getting this download of the mental and emotional distress that this virus carries. And so, while many of us will avoid the physical impact of this virus, where either by either sheltering in place and or having such a great immune system that for our bodies it's just a blip in the radar, there is a way that for those of us who are highly sensitive and empathic, the pandemic of fear is just as serious, if not more so, than the physical virus. Yeah, I gotta say, he's really amazing. I've just been his sincerity, his authenticity, like, there's a human being talking to you when he comes on and he's expressing this. And it was like he's speaking the true. And he's sharing this from this place of just such profound humanity. And so what I wanted to say about what he was saying is that if Chris Cuomo on CNN is basically giving people a heads up about the mental and emotional and I would say energetic and spiritual aspects of this pandemic, then you know that it's affecting people. So as we navigate this time, as we ride through this, it's that whole process of holding the space for the fear, holding the space for the colicky baby within inside of all of us, holding the space for the part of us that has gotten really squirrely because we've been housebound for a month. And, in the same way that when you're working with a very, very distressed baby, if you've ever had a colicky baby in your arms, aside from wanting to bite them, at least that's the way I feel sometimes. But when you're holding a colicky baby in your arms, reacting to their colic is the worst thing you can do. And in my experience, and I will say I'm not a mother. I've been around a lot of kids over the years, but I'm not a mom. So I've never had to do more than like about 4 days in a row with a very, very cranky child. And I know that for a mom, when she's in that state where it's just like, oh my God, I haven't slept in weeks, and this baby is just miserable, it is untenable. So I just want to say, I get it. It sucks. And what I found was that if I could calm myself down and not react to the colicky baby and not react to their distress, they could self-soothe so much better than when I was in this place where I was like, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby, stop being so upset. And I think that's the thing with all of us right now is that we really need to just be so kind with ourselves as we navigate this period of time where we are riding the waves of change. So I invite you to join me in just showing up for yourself, in cultivating the willingness to accept this, cultivating the willingness to just be present with whatever feelings are coming up, and allowing. I was reading, Barbara, your comment about the pandemic of fear is so real. Friends have been so on edge without realizing it when they speak to you. People are squirrely, people are angry, people are responding in all kinds of different ways. And I've got a meme that I'm going to be releasing fairly soon talking about the 5 stages of grief. And it's really interesting looking at the way we as a culture, we as an entire world are responding and how different people are at different stages of acceptance and grief. And the first stage of grief is denial. It's this is not happening. This can't possibly be happening. Oh, it's going to be over in any day. It couldn't be that big a deal. It's a total hoax. And then we go to anger. And the anger, sometimes people go from denial to bargaining. Sometimes they go to, because it's not linear. But anger is the second stage, and that's more of the I can't believe people are hoarding all that toilet paper, and oh my God, our government sucks, and oh my God, they're bogarting the ventilators, and I can't believe that person threw that party, and people were blatantly disregarding the CDC suggestions, and or I can't believe all these people are succumbing to the CDC suggestions, or a really extreme example of grief as anger is all the protesters who decided to, like, in Lansing, the guys that all showed up and basically just had a hissy fit because they don't want their liberty trampled on. And it's like, yeah, well, some of us would really like to just stay alive. Thank you very much. So, there's anger. And anger, one of the things that anger also looks like is getting really squirrely and wanting to rebel and wanting to jump the fence. So anger is the second stage. Bargaining is the third. God will protect me. I'm young. I'm healthy. It couldn't possibly affect me that badly. If I just follow this, if I just eat, take elderberry syrup, if I just take extra vitamin C, if I just keep a positive attitude, if I just pray the rosary enough times, if I just whatever, this will pass. I'm going to be okay. I can dodge this bullet. My people can dodge this bullet. Just all of the ways that we bargain with it, that we try to find the escape route for ourselves and for the people we care about. And then after bargaining, often comes resignation and depression. And that's when we go, oh my God, this is what it is. This is awful. This is horrible. This is going to be, and then there's that sense of like, this is going to last forever. I'm never going to get to the other side of this. I'm never going to get out of this. This is never going to change. And the thing about this is that is depression. Depression is that part of us that's like, what's the point? Pass me the wine. But that is the stage that generally comes, that resignation and that surrendering to the discomfort is the step that comes right before, or the stage that comes right before acceptance. And acceptance is when we can allow it, when we can acknowledge it for what it is, when we can be in the place where it is like, yeah, it totally sucks. My life is completely changed. And I can be here now. I can focus on the moment. I can find my way through this. I can keep on keeping on. I can keep focusing on taking it one day at a time. All I can do are the little baby steps that I can take. All I can do is just keep putting one foot in front of the next and keep bringing myself back to this moment here and now. So that's me chatting with you about all kinds of stuff and just really sharing this miracle that here I am, I'm alive, 39 years from my wake-up call day. I didn't die. I didn't get harmed or damaged to the point where my life was tragically, irrevocably altered on a physical level. And I experienced enough discomfort and enough of a wake-up call from it that it basically forced me to learn how to heal myself and ultimately to learn how to be the healer that I am now, and how to create the space for my soul to return to. That one of the things about soul retrieval is that we have to be hospitable to the part of us that left. So before we can get ourselves back, a lot of times we have to do the work to make ourselves a safe place to return to. So here I am, 39 years later, aware of the part of me that had its foot on the accelerator and was ready to just like take off. and the other part of me that was like absolutely like pulling the emergency brake and not ready at all. And the part of me that was just not ready in the sense of I was 18, I was struggling with an eating disorder, I was partying with the best of them, I was constantly looking for boyfriends, and I was not in a place of responsiveness. I was in a place of reactiveness pretty much 24/7, except when I was making art. When I was making art, I was in grace. But the rest of the time, I was a reactive hot mess. And I did not have any of the tools that would have prepared me to handle success, that would have prepared me to handle a satisfying, fulfilling, intimate relationship. Like all of the things that I wasn't ready for, I now get that it was like I got to sit in this awkward in between place for a really long time to be here today having this conversation with you about surrender, about letting go of the struggle, about leaning in, about acceptance, about wonder, about divine timing, about all of these incredible things. So I'm going to stop because we're hitting 5:55, and that's a magical number. Actually, I just exceeded it, but hey. Until next time, I'm wishing you peace. If you know somebody who might find this useful, who needs to hear just kind of like, I don't know, different perspective, some hope maybe, then please hit the share button. Actually, yeah, hit the share button. Pass this along to friends, family, loved ones, anybody who might find this useful. And until next time, I am wishing you peace. And by the way, over here, EmpathicMasteryBook.com for 380 pages of tools, resources, information, support that will really, really give you what you need to be able to navigate this insane time that we are in, to be able to float instead of struggle and drown, to be able to lean into the curve, to be able to lean into the skid, and to be able to navigate our way through. Valerie, you are so welcome. Barbara, you are so welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here. It is such an honor and privilege to share this space with you guys. What a wild time. Amazing. Tell me how you're doing. Let me know how you're coping. I really want to hear. And also the other thing I really would love to know is, what are you needing right now? What are you looking for? What are the things that would be especially helpful? So I'll catch up with you guys sometime very soon. Sending you so much love, and happy anniversary of my resurrection, my rebirth, my renewal, and the I didn't die, and I'm still here, and I'm still kicking, and I definitely have work to do. So you guys, hold fast, hold steady, hang tight. I'll see you soon.